Hi guys, so today's lesson is going to look at creative writing. Now we've already done quite a bit of work on creative writing, so we're just going to go back and do a bit of revision over some of the techniques and styles that you might be expected to see or be using within your creative writing, and ways to kind of bring your creative writing to the next level, make it more sophisticated, and make it ultimately more engaging for the reader, because that's really what creative writing is about. You know, you want to create vivid imagery, yes, but you want to create interesting characters, and you want to, somewhat of a unique plot maybe, but you definitely want to engage your reader. Okay, that's one of the main things about creative writing. So to start off with, I want you just to think back. It's been a while since we looked at this, okay, but we have done it before. I want you to think back, and can you write down any 4 techniques which you might find useful in creating a vivid image for your reader of your creative writing? So what kind of techniques would you think would be good at creating a good image within mind of a reader who is reading your creative writing? So take a minute, think about it, okay, and write down those, pause the video here, and then write down your 4 different techniques that you might use. Okay, so hopefully everyone came up with a few different images or a few different techniques here. Things we might have come up with: similes, metaphors, alliteration. We definitely could have used the 5 senses. Okay, so we could have used sound, smells, tastes, feeling. We might have used a set of motive language. We might have said onomatopoeia. We might have said exaggeration. There's a huge amount of different techniques we can use here. Okay, but it's just good to be aware of the different ones that come to our minds so that we can start to think about using them within our own writing. So objectives for today are just to revise some of the important features of creative writing, and we want to get a bit of planning done as well. We want to also do a little bit of practicing some of those techniques. Okay, so a few different things to go through today. To start off with, it's going to be a bit of me just talking through a few things just to make sure we're all remembering some of the things we've talked about before, different techniques and styles we might use within our creative writing. Okay, so first thing we want to remember is this phrase, show, don't tell. Okay, what we want to do in creative writing is show the reader what's happening. We don't want to just tell them this happened, this happened. Now, sometimes people find this phrase a little bit difficult to get their head around, so just a few examples. Telling. What is telling? Telling is when you state facts and you tell the reader what to think or what to feel or what is happening, and you're just saying things. Okay, so we have a few examples here on the left hand side of this table. Jim was old. You're telling us something. All right, the blue room was empty. You're telling me something. Okay, you're stating a fact. She waited nervously. Again, you're just giving me information. You're not really creating an image here. You're just giving me, this is what happens. You're telling me something. Okay, he felt happy. Again, okay, you're mentioning an emotion, but are you actually helping me to imagine the emotion? Are you helping me to feel the emotion? Not really. You're just stating it. Okay, so all of these are kind of telling sentences. Alright, and these are the kind of sentences we want to avoid overusing within our writing. Okay, instead what we're looking for is showing. Okay, and what showing does is it describes a situation. So you might still give the same amount of information or the same type of information, but you're doing it in a more descriptive way. It can help create a mental image for the reader, so the reader can feel or see or think about what's going on here. Right? It might include the different senses, it might include feelings, it might include actions, and it definitely is going to be more engaging for a reader than simply telling us something. Alright, so if we look at the yellow side of the table and we see how we can take a telling statement such as Jim was old, and we can turn it into something much more interesting and engaging. When we say, Jim raised his weary body from the chair, clutching his cane with white arthritic knuckles. Okay, wow, now we can definitely see the difference here, can't we? You know, it's a huge difference between that first sentence, and yet in the second one we also see, like, we all know that Jim is an older man. Okay, we can see the word weary in front of his body, the clutching his cane, okay, if he has a cane, and the white arthritic, okay, so if he has arthritis. So all of this is giving us a clear image in our heads. We can see Jim. Okay, so rather than just being told here, oh, Jim is old, we can see what Jim would look like. We can maybe feel the pain that he maybe is in, or the stiffness he is in when he's standing. We can hear the creak maybe of the chair. Okay, we can see, like, in my mind, I can see his hand maybe wobbling slightly as he clutches that cane. So it's much more vivid than that statement of Jim was old. The same, the blue room was empty. We turned that into silence filled the room. Not even the dust was dancing. Okay, again, really vivid. Okay, we can feel the stillness of the room. Okay, we can hear the absolute silence. Okay, and I think that word dust there really emphasizes how there's nothing moving and it's just a silence and a stillness. She waited nervously. I'm great, smiled, although her quivering lip and high-pitched tone betrayed her. Okay, again, now we can hear, we're used to hearing this kind of someone being like, oh, I'm great, and this falseness, and there's a sense of authenticity to that. Okay, this is what a person who is nervous would act like, and we can see her lips quivering, and we can hear the tone in her voice, and we're using different senses here to bring in and definitely create a much more vivid image. And finally, he felt happy. His entire face beamed. There was no masking how this news made him feel. And we can get here, we have that feeling, that empathy of someone who's, overcome with joy, and it speaks to us within ourselves. Saying he felt happy doesn't really give us much, but we can feel, and we have this. I'm sure we all have memories of when we've seen someone or when we felt this way, of our, not being able to hold back our excitement, and it really helps us to connect with this character. So I hope you can see here the difference between the telling on the left-hand side. Yes, they are accurate statements, but do they engage us? Do they make us want to know these characters? Do they make us want to feel the story and get engaged with it? Okay, and so we're looking at moving away from those telling and into those showing kind of style of writing. Okay. We also want to look at the verbs we're using, okay, and this is something that comes with being more sophisticated as a writer. We are trying to avoid the repetition of certain basic verbs in particular, all right, so things like is, was, said, walked, had, did, have, be, should, etc. These are all very, very basic ways of speaking, okay. Now, we may use them quite a lot in our speech, but when we're looking at creating a really vivid piece of creative writing, we want to go a bit further than this. We want to push ourselves a bit more. And we also, however, want to avoid just going into this element of using lots and lots of adjectives. Yes, it's important to be able to use adjectives, of course, it's important to be able to use a wide range, and they do add to our description. But if we become overly reliant on adjectives, it can take away from the overall feeling. And so sometimes, rather than having a basic verb and an adjective to go with it, okay, so for example, he walked slowly, there's our basic verb walked and our adjective slowly, or sorry, adverb slowly, I should say, adverb slowly. We could change that and say he ambled or he sauntered, and there we're getting a more sophisticated, and it's giving us a better image, because the walking slowly, just, it's a statement of fact almost, whereas the ambled or the strolled or the sauntered, they give a certain sense of emotion and feeling to them as well. And we're also trying to beware of overusing ing words. Okay, sometimes people say he was walking, they were telling, they were talking, they were showing, he was speaking, and it can be quite tiring as a reader. So again, here we're going to look at some examples. Now, in the left-hand side, we see the weaker option. On the right-hand side, we see the stronger option. There's nothing necessarily wrong with the weaker options. They're just not really going to engage us. So, first example, the restaurant's food is excellent. Statement of fact, or statement of opinion at least, very straightforward. And we're using that word is. Whereas, the restaurant serves excellent food. Much stronger here, okay? It's showing a wider vocabulary, and it's showing that a more realistic experience, okay? Jennifer Lawrence is the star of The Hunger Games. Jennifer Lawrence stars in The Hunger Games, okay? And what we're doing here is we're trying to avoid that repetition of the is, okay? Because that's what the tiring piece is. Whereas if you're saying she stars in The Hunger Games, you're not going to be repeating the verb stars all the time, okay? But if you said Jennifer Lawrence is an actress, Jennifer Lawrence is the star of The Hunger Games, Jennifer Lawrence is a Oscar nominee, you can see how easy it becomes to repeat that word is, whereas we start changing it, we start using words, changing the verbs, it becomes much stronger statements. The teacher is loud when she is telling the students to do their work. The teacher bellows when she's telling students to do their work, and you can see the difference, between is loud and bellows, and we all know both these words, okay? So it shouldn't be that, we should try and push ourselves to bring in this wider range of verbs. I'm sorry, she said softly. I'm sorry, she whispered. Here's something that people can often struggle with in terms of writing dialogue. We see a lot of he said, she said, they said, he said back, he said, she said, and this repetition of the word said, and sometimes replied comes in there a lot as well. But trying to change the verb, there's plenty of verbs out there, synonyms for speaking, to give us maybe a better insight into what the meaning of it is. So using, instead of said softly, using whispered. He ate lunch quickly in order to make the meeting on time. He gobbled his lunch in order to make the meeting on time. And again here, we're just trying to move away from simple verbs with adjectives into more complex verbs that are maybe giving a more succinct image of what's going on. So these are some of the things we might be thinking about when we're writing. We need to think about we are showing and not telling, and we need to be thinking about the verbs that we're using, the choice of language we are making. So if you're struggling, I'm just going to put up here is some examples of synonyms you might use. Now be careful, not all synonyms are exactly the same, okay? So, if I was trying to say ate slowly, then the word gobbled doesn't work, okay? Or if I'm trying to say he enjoyed eating his food, I wouldn't say he enjoyed chewing his food, okay? You need to think about the words you're using here as well, okay? And think about the meanings of these synonyms are the exact same meaning, and just be careful around that. If you're unsure of the synonym that's being displayed here, or the one you want to use, just make sure you look it up, use those dictionary skills, look them up, see how they're used in the dictionary, and does it make sense, okay? But here, these are just examples of some different vocabulary you might look at using instead of these basic words that people tend to overuse. Okay, so last thing, and I know we're going through quite a lot here, okay, and this is imagery. And we've talked about all of this before, okay, but imagery is this idea of creating an image within the reader's mind using just your words. Okay, and here is where we really want to try and avoid statements, and we really want to try and avoid overusing those basic verbs. Rather, we want to try and bring in the different senses and the different feelings. Okay, so imagery pretty much nearly always revolves around one or more of the senses. So the sight, sound, smell, touch, and taste of different things. So if we just go on through a few of these examples really quick, I'm just wary that this video is now 13 minutes long or so, and I don't want to keep going too much, so I'm just going to read through 2 or 3 of these. So if we look at the first one, Arnold crept deeper into the dark and dim forest. Right, we can see the sense of sight here, the darkness, the dimness. So the words dark and dim are visual words, giving us a sense of danger and an expectation that something's bad is about to happen to Arnold. I might skip down to the tactile, so the second last one. The rough terrain pierced through the worn fabric of Arnold's shoes as he embarked on day 20 of his journey. And here we're looking at touch. So we can feel the rough terrain, the piercing, and the worn fabric. These are all things that we touch. These are all touch senses that we can imagine, okay? So we're trying to connect these different senses into our writing. People tend to be maybe overly reliant on sight and sound, but there's a huge amount else in the world. The smell of things, the touch of, the feel of things, the taste, okay? And it doesn't, taste can be outside of just outside of food as well. We can taste the air. Okay, if there's a staleness in the air, we might be able to taste that. We might be able to taste if it's very hot out. We might be able to taste the springtime. Just be creative with how you use taste as well. Don't be always thinking that it's just about food. Okay, so again, I'm not going to go through any more of these. I just want you to read through them yourself. So maybe pause here and read through them yourselves and just think about these different images and how you create really vivid and effective images. Okay. So, task 1, and I know you've been listening to me for quite a while here. Task 1 for today is just to choose an image here, and basically what I'm looking for is a descriptive paragraph, or just any kind of paragraph, inspired by that image. So you might be describing the image you see, you might be imagining you're someone in the image, okay? You might be imagining that a story around the image, okay? Be creative here, but what I'm looking to see is you showing, not telling. I'm looking for you to use a range of different verbs, okay, and not just basic verb and adjective. And I'm looking for you to use the senses and show me that you understand all of these, okay? So just choose any one of them. I've tried to be quite wide-ranging in the choice of images I put up here, okay? But hopefully one of them will speak to you and you'll be able to create a great piece of writing. Again, only a paragraph, 5-6 sentences, half an A4 page, whatever. I'm not looking for 3 pages here. This is just a simple task. You'll only spend about 10 to 15 minutes on it. Okay, so maybe pause here, go and complete that task, and then come back to us when you have that finished. Okay, well, I hope everyone kind of had enjoyed that bit of creative writing in terms of writing about one of these images, and make sure you're going to submit that to me on Teams. That's going to be the work to submit for today's lesson on Teams. The final thing then that I'm going to leave you with, and you don't actually have to do this task just yet, this is just a thinking task, okay, and we're going to look at this tomorrow in more detail, but just to get you thinking, okay, these are the prompts that we're going to use for writing a creative piece of work over the rest of this week, okay? So basically before tomorrow's lesson, I would like you to have chosen your prompt, okay, and have maybe in your head just be working around. We're going to work on planning tomorrow, but we're going to maybe just think about it in our heads for the next, for the overnight, and come to tomorrow's lesson with somewhat of an idea formed. So you have the written prompts here. There are many theories about who had murdered her. Could you start a story from that with that line? That's a great line. Sets up a mystery straight away. She kept her head covered and prayed for daylight. What's going on there? Again, a sense of the unknown. He never liked that doll, the one on the mantle with blue eyes and matted hair. Creating an image here and creating maybe a horror, but maybe there's something else there. Maybe there's a memory there. Okay, be creative. You guys will have your own ideas about each of these. She woke up that morning with a terrible pain in her shoulder and no memory of the previous day or night. Okay? Again, all of these are calling on a question. They're calling us into the story to find out more. Okay? So these are great first lines to use to really start off a story. If you don't like any of those though, you might choose one of these images down the bottom. So you see the first one on the left, this person behind the wet glass. Who is that person behind the glass? Where are they? How are they feeling? What is their story? Could you tell me a story about them? You might take this middle image, the box, the door, the crumbling brick it begged me to enter. Could you finish that story? Look at that image in front of you. Or this last one here, which I think begs a lot of creativity, okay? Maybe takes you into a different persona, okay? Remember, you don't have to be yourself in these stories. I was entirely out of my comfort zone, cornered and fast running out of options. My next move may be the most important of my life, okay? So, really take a kind of creative approach to these and come tomorrow with some kind of idea within your head. It does not be fully formed, but I want you to have some kind of idea for one of these prompts of what you're going to write about. Okay, so the first task is going to be submitted on Teams today, and tomorrow we will look at more detailed planning, but I just want you to have an idea based on one of these for then. Alright guys, any questions, let me know by email. Thank you.